Good morning. This is the weekly Women's GMO-Free News. We're here today with our special guest, Chris Hardy from the Family Farmers Coalition in Oregon. Also with us today is Zen Honeycutt, founder of Moms Across America, and Florence Vincent. Also Jack Olmsted, the producer of Weekly Women's GMO-Free News. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Chris, let's start out with you talking a little bit about your organization and what you're up to.
Well, what our Family Farms Coalition is up to in Southern Oregon, in Jackson County specifically, is we are working on a ballot measure to protect our family farms from the encroachment of genetically engineered pollens coming from crops that are being produced in the area here that are putting our seed crops of our farmers in Southern Oregon in harm's way and threatening our farmers' livelihoods and threatening their seed markets and their the produce that they grow from these seeds right now are under threat, primarily from the existence of a multinational corporation who is banned to produce these crops in their own country. And so we have a ballot initiative that is going before voters in Jackson County May of this year, and we've got about 8 weeks to go here before the ballots get mailed out to Jackson County residents, citizens, and so we're doing everything we can to get out the vote and let people know what the realities of that are impacting our farming communities here across the area.
Okay, great. For the benefit of the people that might not know exactly what you're doing, can you explain what a seed crop is and exactly how they're threatened by neighbors who do GMO farming?
Yes. So seeds, when seeds make more seed, when plants make seeds, they produce pollen, and those pollens are either carried on the wind or carried by insects. And at certain times of the year, there's a lot of pollen that's blowing around in the air, and that's Mother Nature's process. We can't stop that. And that's how the next generation of plants and seeds are made, is through this sexual reproductive process that produce 50, 60, 70% of our nation's food supply, and I should say produce all of our food supply. Insects being better than 50% of that formula, and insects and wind will carry it doesn't matter if it's transgenic, GMO, GE, genetically engineered, call it what you wish. We're talking about GMO pollen that would land on a farmer's seed crops, and the farmer would not know if that pollen is there or not. So it's pollen is pretty small. You might be able to see it in your hand, but when it's blowing through the air, you're probably not going to be able to really see it in effect. And it's just going to kind of be a guessing game whether or not you've had contamination, whether or not that process has been carried out from this patented technology that come from the plants that are GMO'd to produce pesticides, produce its own resistance to insects, or to be designed to be sprayed heavily with the chemicals that this large-scale agriculture uses in its process. So, this is a direct threat to many of our farmers markets, farmers and their markets. If this technology gets into unknowingly into the crops of these farms, and people with integrity, farmers who do not want to be selling this stuff, they're either stopping growing the seeds altogether, or they're having to resort to very expensive testing to make sure that this technology is not in their seed crops. So it's really kind of throwing our farmers for a loop here in Southern Oregon, and I think across the United States.
So the burden is put on the small farmer who's trying to raise a pure or clean seed crop that is non-GMO or organic, and it's really crushing them economically. Then it's really hurting them when the pollen from the GMO crops come over and pollute their fields, and it's sort of beyond their control as far as I can tell. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what you're working for.
Correct.
And what's your greatest challenge been?
Our greatest challenge right now is competing with the tens of thousands of dollars right now, in excess of $250,000 have come into the campaign to defeat the Family Farms measure in Jackson County. And this money is 95% or more coming from out of state and out of Jackson County. Mostly from chemical corporations and from sugar corporations.
Did you say
millions? Did you say millions of dollars is coming from out of state?
More than $250,000. Actually, I think this morning, so as of last night, the number was just right under $250,000. That's what I know at this point.
And is it true that Oregon does not have the disclosure laws that Washington State has? So there's no way to trace that, or?
Correct. I'm not familiar with the disclosure laws in Washington, but I can tell you conversations that I've had with the director of the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, that once a genetically engineered crop has been deregulated, no one needs to know about any of this stuff. If you, as the director of APHIS told me, if you want to find out where this stuff is, you need to be in touch with Monsanto, or you need to call up the multinational I mentioned earlier, who's here from Switzerland. You need to call these guys up and just ask them, like, hey, where are you guys at? Like, we're over here, and are you guys in the neighborhood? And work directly with them, and I can share our experience about that in the right timing here.
Well, can you tell us what the GMO-free Jackson County PAC is about?
So the GMO-free Jackson County Political Action Committee, who is the community effort that got this organization, got the measure off the ground. It was a citizens initiative that came together. It became a political action committee probably a year and a half in, and the Our Family Farms Coalition is a group of farmers in Southern Oregon from a couple different counties here in the Rogue Valley that have worked for about the past 2 months or so explicitly with the sole goal of passing Measure 15119 in May, and then working forward from there to make sure that all genetically engineered crops are removed from existence in the Rogue Valley, in Josephine and Jackson County.
What do you see as the roadblocks to unity in our movement?
Say that again, sorry?
What do you see as the roadblocks to unity in our movement? How can we be stronger? How can everyone that's involved in this movement help you? And are there ways that people are kind of not working together optimally?
There are a lot of different challenges ahead with different businesses and state laws and things. Understand that Jackson County alone is the county in the state of Oregon that was authorized the Monsanto Protection Act of Oregon that was signed by our governor a few months ago, Jackson County is the only county in the state of Oregon with an exemption to that ruling. So at this time, we need all support that can show up to really let legislators and let the state of Oregon know that that this is an issue and that it needs our immediate attention across the nation. And it's just really important to get the word out about the effort that is underway in Southern Oregon, and people across the country by supporting our campaign via donation, and that would be on our website, ourfamilyfarmscoalition.org. And that I know right now to outcompete the massive amount of money that's coming in right now from these sugar corporations and the chemical corporations is we need that support.
Then the historic stance on this farm situation is, for example, with the cows. If I live next door to you and my cow gets loose and it goes over to your property and causes some kind of damage to your property, if my cow gets loose, if my dog gets loose and kills your sheep, whatever, I'm responsible. I am the one who's responsible. But with this GMO, farming, it's completely been flipped backwards, so that the person who is attacked and whose business is ruined and polluted, they're the ones that are declared responsible for stealing the patent on the technology. Just recently, Howard Vlieger had a cow incident. Cow got out, there was a truck that got wrecked. Howard Vlieger is completely responsible for the accident, for the cow, for all of it. But with the
it's called being a good neighbor. It's called being a good neighbor.
Yes.
And the fact is that GMO farms, they're not good. GMOs are not good neighbors.
No.
They contaminate and they don't take responsibility.
Zen, that's a tough one though. Using good neighbor, it's kind of a trigger point for us here in Southern Oregon. What we have is a political action committee called Good Neighbor Farmers, and it's made up of basically Monsanto and Syngenta, and it's the Farm Bureau. It's the Jackson County Farm Bureau, and they're calling themselves Good Neighbor Farmers Political Action Committee. This is the entity that's receiving the tens of thousands of dollars from the sugar companies and the chemical corporations.
Unreal. Have you ever had a chance to pin them on that and say, how exactly are you being a good neighbor by destroying our crops?
We're calling them out on it right now because it's totally unneighborly. And as a matter of fact, we had the Southern Oregon Seed Growers Association that got off the ground over a year ago, and Syngenta and all farmers across the Rogue Valley, Jackson County, Josephine County were invited to the table in that discussion. And essentially, there were about maybe four people that were like, yeah, we might be interested in growing GMOs, but there were dozens of non-GMO farmers that showed up to that process. It was held at the Oregon State University Extension Service office, and it was, neutral. Like the director of the program there said, we cannot sit here and debate GMOs. If the conversation goes to talking about GMOs, I'm going to have to shut the meeting down. So it was made very clear that we were there to get business done, and getting business done was putting pins on maps and saying, okay, well, here's your GMO plot, and okay, here's your non-GMO plot. Basically, it was about the chemical corporation Syngenta, who's banned to produce them in our own country, like I shared earlier. That's the reason why this whole thing came about. And so after the first few meetings, basically there were only 2 or 3 people in the room that suggested they were growing GMOs, and one of them was Syngenta. After 6 months of this process, Syngenta sent their attorney down from Portland, somebody representing Syngenta Crop Science, and said, what you guys have set in motion here doesn't work for our business model. So we understand and appreciate all the work that's gone forward here, but we're just going to have to step out of this because it doesn't mash with Syngenta's business model. And so there you have it in a nutshell. Coexistence in Southern Oregon has failed. Our best attempt that the USDA, Oregon Department of Agriculture, everybody has recommended, just do a pinning system. County commissioners here in Jackson County recommend, hey, why don't you guys just get together and talk this out? Farm Bureau, or Jackson County Farm Bureau, who is giving a lot of their money, gets a lot of their money from Monsanto, is also giving money to Good Neighbor Farmers PAC. These folks are the same people who basically said, why don't you just work with these guys and put pins on the map, right? The process has failed of coexistence in Southern Oregon.
You know, I think they should just call their coalition the polluting neighbors. That's really what they are. I mean, it's terrible. So can you tell us, you started to talk a little bit about, before you got garbled, about how we can help you, or how, you know, the coalitions can work together, or what you need. And I think you said funding. Is that true? Is that...
Yes, funding is vitally important to be able to wage this campaign. Right now, we're full steam ahead on our media and getting everything like lined up so that you know, here in the right sequence, we're getting the message out to people so that we can keep the message clear. And of course, as we found out with other campaigns with the labeling, you know, they just want to. These chemical corporations, they just want to make it, they just kind of want to make it really difficult for you to find the truth. So you show up at the ballot, say you don't have enough information, you don't vote in favor of it, you don't know enough. And so we're really trying to keep our message very clear that supporting this measure is supporting family farms, and again, Jackson County is on the front end. To be the first county, the first local initiative in the United States that will have, in effect, given the largest multinational chemical corporation on earth the boot, telling them they need to leave. And so this is, these guys know this, the industry knows it, and they're going to throw everything they can at it to make sure that we do not succeed at passing this measure. So any way and every way that people can show up financially is probably the best thing they can do, and of course working locally on similar initiatives, because they're not going to be able to put out, you know, so many fires going on. You know, they're just going to be running all this efforts to try to stop local initiatives. It's just not sustainable for them. So for sure, people need to have these conversations locally and get efforts like this started in their own community as well.
How many people live in your county? How many voters are there?
We have a little bit more than 150,000. And so registered voters, I believe there are 80,000-ish or 75,000 eligible voters, and I think we're expecting somewhere around 60,000 to show up, and we need more than 25,000 yes votes to make this happen.
Do you have any feeling as to which way it might go as of this point, kind of the vibe? I mean, do people in the valley realize how precious your farmland is and that it needs to be protected?
I would hope so. Yeah, I'd say that there's a good 50% that are in alignment. I mean, understand that it didn't take. We got more than 6,700 signatures to put this thing on the ballot. These are registered, eligible voters in Jackson County that made this possible. We have hundreds of people across the Rogue Valley who have signed in support. We have over 150 farms who support the removal of genetically engineered crops in the Rogue Valley, and hundreds of businesses and community organizations, food-related businesses, and medical healthcare practitioners who have signed in support of removing these crops from our county. So this is not like it's a bunch of left-wing hippie movement, something granola eat and just don't like to eat their GMOs. It's not about that. This is a much bigger conversation that has been had for 2+ years.
Do you have any idea of the ratio of family farms to corporate seed farms? I imagine the numbers are much higher for family farms.
Well, that's the interesting thing about the Rogue Valley is we're not like where my family comes from, where my granddad was a farmer back in Iowa, and many family members, incidentally, are at this time growing genetically engineered crops, like thousands and thousands of acres. So it's not like Iowa or Nebraska or like the croplands of the vast tracts of monocrops. The Rogue Valley of Southern Oregon has narrow valleys, which makes the coexistence thing very nebulous, if not impossible. And we have a lot of small, diversified family farms across the area. It's not like a bunch of corporate, big corporate farms that are in the region here. So that's the good thing that's going for us here is that people are like, wait, chemical corporation, what are they doing here? Oh, and they're banned in their own country? Yeah, this just like isn't the flavor of the Rogue Valley. So I think with all that said, we have a lot of momentum moving forward here going into the May ballot.
Very good. Does anyone else have a question, Zen? I can't hear you. Zen, unmute.
Yeah, so I was wondering about how many other counties do you know, Chris, are doing GMO-free zones across the country? We're aware of Humboldt County is attempting this, and Marin and San Juan, I think, did achieve this. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mendocino, Marin County, and Trinity counties, all kind of down in Northern California, all successfully 8, 9, 10 years on have successfully withheld a ban. And San Juan Islands, as you know, Zen, in Washington State, just when was that? A year ago, a little over a year ago, yeah.
So Mendocino, Marin, and what was the other county?
Trinity.
Trinity, okay.
And then San Juan Islands, I believe that was a year ago this last November. So
right.
Yeah, they passed it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like in November 2012, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the difference is that these guys do not have chemical corporations set up shop, and they're growing them all across their area at the time that they passed these bans.
Yeah, you can be sure that Syngenta is going to fight very hard against you. Can you tell us what the steps are? Sorry, can you tell us what the steps are? If a county wants to go GMO-free, what steps did you go through to make that happen?
Well, first off, is it going to be a grassroots thing, or is it something that's going to come from the local government? In the case, I believe, of Mendocino, in Marin County, the supervisor, I believe it was the ag supervisor, proposed this to the commissioners that they work towards moving forward with the ban, and so it didn't really come from the citizens so much. Whereas here in Jackson County and in our neighbor county, Josephine County, who also has a ban initiative on the ballot for May. So it's just really important to be clear. You know, the more grassroots it is, you know, the deeper founded it is, and the more it can be felt throughout the community. So it's just really important to find those pieces of people who are already in alignment, and you know, just bring it together. Like, have a meeting, say, hey, is this something that there's energy here for? And then doing the legwork on it. You know, just going to the county, finding out what the hoops that need to be jumped through to get, you know, to get it on the ballot. And then, of course, the bigger challenges are actually writing the initiative and looking at pre-existing law to make sure that there isn't anything that's you know, out of sync or out of place with local ordinance. And in the case of Jackson County, we're actually fortunate to have what's called a pair abatement rule on the books, and it basically says if your neighbor is growing a bunch of fruit trees and they all of a sudden stop spraying them with pesticides, that the pest population is going to start careening out of control, and so the county basically has the authority to move in and say, like, hey, you're either going to have to start spraying pesticide or you're going to have to cut that orchard down. And this is what we're using that works with our initiative that basically makes it, in effect, it operates the same way. Its enforcement is done the same way. It costs the county nothing. The people who have breached the ordinance actually pay for their disregard for the ordinance, and so it's the onus is put on them, not on the county.
Is there a risk of pesticide contamination? At Moms Across America, we're focusing on the pesticides involved in GMO production, and are you talking much about that? About the fact that this is about pesticide, and you know that harms your whole environment, destroys the soil, and hurts the systems, and it's not a balanced way of farming. Are you talking about the chemicals involved in this at all, or is it strictly pollen pollution?
Absolutely, we are talking about the chemicals that go along with these genetically engineered crops. So that is, as we all, I think, are on the same page. I don't know about the listeners here, but the studies that have come out in the past few years that have shown dramatic increases of the uses of these chemicals on these crops that are designed to be sprayed, doused with these chemicals. It's very clear that this runs contra to looking at the health of our communities and as our society as a whole. So our children are our reproductive systems, like our they're finding some of these pesticides. The Bt pesticide that's used with the corn typically is a study came out in Canada, I think, a couple of years ago in 2012, showed the 93% of the mothers who were tested had pesticide, the Bt pesticide, in their blood supply, and 80% of it was found in the umbilical cord of their unborn fetus. How did it get there? Well, wonder maybe it came through their diet, possibly, or somehow it was ingested. And so, it's maybe not as clear as the biotech corporations are telling us that their technology is just digested and broken down in the human gut tract. That possibly it's not all broken down, and it actually enters our blood supply, no less the fetus of our unborn children.
Absolutely. Zen, did you have one more question before you? No, I think we were asking the same question. Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you to do is that would it be possible for you to please go through your PowerPoint and tell us a little bit about what you have in your talk?
Sure thing. Let's see here. After I drop my web connection, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Okay, I think this will work. Let me know. It should be up, or it should be, I think it's up now. How's that look?
That looks good.
I can't fully see it. I can kind of see it. Okay, I guess that's good enough. So,
Yeah.
So our family farms measure basically is just going to protect our farmers from the chance that we would have contamination of our seed crops. The seed crops are the foundation of our food supply, and the GMOs, the genetically engineered crops, are basically not hybrids, and they're things that we have not had since maybe the past 15 or so years that are ubiquitous now in our food supply. It's taking something completely unrelated from an unrelated species or a family and crossing that into the food that we eat or into the trees that we grow. So that's like a GMO, a genetically engineered plant, is using completely unrelated family genetics. This map right here is a map of, we have the red dots are the genetically engineered sugar beet plots being grown by Syngenta. The green dots are our non-GMO farmers. And you can see the close proximity here. These circles are actually 8-mile diameter, 4-mile radius. According to the USDA, the safe distance for keeping the regulated, at the time these crops were regulated, 4-mile distance was required by the USDA Animal Plant Health Inspection Service to keep the pollen from contaminating a nearby farmer. And you can see nothing has changed. These red dots and these green dots are virtually stacked right on top of each other. That dark area, that band right down the middle here, is actually the bottom, the river bottom, and the dark area up here on the top and down on the bottom are the ridge tops of the mountains. So like class 3, class 4 soil. So pretty much the only place you'd be growing any crops is right down here in the center of the valley. And that's where these guys have all their transgenic sugar beets. So that's a very big problem for our farmers, as you can see in our narrow valleys here in southern Oregon. So we have the Jackson County Farm Bureau president coming out and saying, is there a risk of genetically modified alfalfa cross-pollinating with conventional alfalfa? Absolutely. He said this in a recent letter to the editors. So this, we're not making this stuff up. We can go online and find that farmers across the United States are spending thousands of dollars to ensure that they do not have contamination. They are planting their crops at inordinate levels of effort are going into their production to make sure that when the GMO crop is being grown, that it is not contaminating their non-GMO crop. So this is a major challenge for farmers across the United States, not just here in Jackson County. So we have farms in southern Oregon here who have had to plow down their crops. Fry Family Farm, Restoration Seed Company have had to destroy their crops outright. So our farm alone had to destroy a $1,000 seed contract with the largest cooperatively owned seed company in the United States. We basically could keep the seed crop going, and it would take a number of weeks, a number of months actually, that this crop would have to be produced. We'd have to winnow it, thresh it, process it, and we would not know if that crop was worth what we were anticipating, or if it just were worth nothing, because after we would have to have it sent off to the lab. Conversations with our seed contractor said, you have to make sure this is tested. We will not buy it unless you test it. The onus is being put on us as farmers here in southern Oregon and across the United States to make sure that our crop is tested, genetically engineered, free of the transgenic genes. So what this does not do is it does not add any new layer of bureaucracy to the process. It uses existing personnel that, like I mentioned earlier about the PAIR ordinance. There is no threat to losing jobs. Essentially what these guys are doing right now is they're hiring temp agencies to come in and harvest the seeds. Otherwise, all we have seen at this point is that it's one of the Syngenta employees comes through with a backpack sprayer, sprays the crop, leaves, and then months later they come through with machetes and a temp agency crew and load the seeds off into a big truck and haul them away to be processed. They're not. It's adding little or nothing to our local economy here, because these seeds are basically being exported out of Jackson County, out of the region, to grow sugar beets someplace else in the world. You know, we don't know where these things are going, but they're not here adding anything to our local economy. And there is a 12-month grace period that's in the ordinance, so it would give 12 months for the crops to be removed. So, you know, if there were somebody growing the alfalfa or corn here in the area, they would have that amount of time to make sure the crops, they transition over. Like I mentioned, hundreds of businesses in the region have signed on in support, over 150 local farms, and many key local community-based businesses here that are helping transition our economy into more local-based, resilient economies, like the Rogue Farm Corps, who's helped training our new farmers moving forward into the future to replace the retiring farmers that make up the majority of our farmers across America. So another thing about this is looking at Marin County's data. They're a little bit bigger than Jackson County. They are an $80 million. They are about the same as Jackson County. Do $80 million worth of agriculture business, and they've seen their economy on organic agriculture jump from what was around a $3 million industry to what is currently a $30 million industry. So 10 years after the ban, let's see, I'm looking at the numbers here, 2012 numbers, so I believe they're over $30 million at this point. So, you know, around 10 years on, they've seen a many-fold increase in their organic production due to, you know, the marketing and the ability to say we do not grow genetically engineered crops in the area. And here's a little graphic on how the money is being shifted around. Sugar companies, Monsanto, Syngenta, other corporate money flowing into the Jackson County. 95% of this is all, again, from outside of Jackson County, from outside the local region. And here was one last slide on the American Pediatrics Association, Academy of Pediatrics, just talking about the exposure to pesticides for children. It doesn't fly. It's not something that is creates healthy communities here in our county or anywhere in the United States. So we need efforts across the nation that are working on this on all fronts. And the awareness is where it starts. As we all know and understand, with the labeling initiative in California and Washington, both very closely defeated, it begins with awareness. And that's where we really have to focus our attention, is lifting our awareness. But in the same stride, we have to have areas in the United States that we know that are not getting polluted with this technology. And it's, you know, the Pacific Northwest grows extensive amounts of seeds for gardeners and for farmers across the United States. So if we put this, we continue the efforts here, we threaten the future of our food supply across the United States, not just here in Oregon.
Wow, that's really powerful. I love the way you ended that with the American Pediatric Association statement on pesticides. You know, they're an extremely conservative association. The reason that I got into this whole movement was because my children came down with autoimmune issues that don't run on either side of our family. And I wanted to figure out how to help them and where it might have come from. And the American Pediatric Association for years did not even acknowledge my children's autoimmune condition, which is called PANDAS or PANS, and it's actually rampant. Doctors are not yet trained in medical schools how to spot this, but our neurologist who specializes in PANDAS thinks that there are 400 to 500,000 children across the U.S. that have this condition, and for us, a big part of getting them healthy was cleaning up their diet and eliminating GMOs. And I believe there is a strong link to the increased use of pesticides in these farming practices and the epidemic health problems that children are suffering throughout the U.S. So I'm really glad you included that, because for me, that's at the bottom of this whole issue. Really, we have to bring it out that it's about the pesticides and that GMOs use more pesticides. They're saying now, one of their slogans is kind of that with GMO farming we use less pesticide. What they mean by that statement is very misleading. What they mean is we are applying less insecticide. That is to the BT crops, and the reason that that is happening is because the BT is inside of all of the plants. Every bite of food we take is full of BT. And it can't be washed off. It's systemic. It's concentrated. BT, as it occurs in nature, if it's used on organic crops, either dies when UV rays hit it, or it can be washed off. In the GMO farming, it is throughout the plant. UV rays never hit it. You eat it, and it is full potency, and it's just awful. So the plants are full of insecticide. Yes, they're applying less because the plants are full of it. They're producing it themselves. And then the other trick is with Roundup, you know, they say they might, I don't know, but I think they try to say that they're using less Roundup, or at least that the rates haven't, you know, grotesquely increased since the start of GMO farming. But the truth is that the concentrations of Roundup are much, much more powerful. So actually, they are using more Roundup, and BT is everywhere now. So just the opposite is true. It's kind of like their what do they call it, friendly neighbor campaign up there. It's just a lie. So I see you're typing. Anyway, sorry, got on my soapbox for a minute, but I loved your talk. I thought it was wonderful. People don't know this. People don't realize what's going on. Thank you for spreading the word, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you for all that important work. Moms Across America is doing really vitally important work, and Jackson County would really like to know how we can support in the statewide labeling initiative. Like, there's just so many layers here to bring together. And how are you guys doing on the getting the urine samples and the water samples sent out to labs for testing? Is there any preliminary reports coming back, or any report on that?
Yes, we have some results back, and they are elevated. We're finding that they are elevated. There are a few more days to sign on. I think there are about 10 more days that people can go to momscrossamerica.com and sign on. Click on Actions and sign on to get your family tested, or even just one person in your family tested, just to get an idea of, you know, what's in our bodies. It's very important. I mean, we all really need to work together, and I admire what you're doing very much, because you live in a pristine place, and we need to respect the great agricultural sites in the United States, and you just live in an area that's just a treasure. And what's going on in the Willamette Valley? I thought I got kind of mixed up. Isn't the Willamette Valley doing this kind of thing too? Isn't that another spot that's going through these issues, or is it just the Rogue Valley?
Yes, the Willamette Valley is also experiencing a similar incursion, if you will, of the sugar beets primarily, but there's grasses, and you may have heard about the escape of the bent grass, the Roundup Ready bent grass, that they can no longer kill, that's running loose in eastern Oregon. Some 10 years on, they've been unsuccessful at attempts to contain it. It is now, I think, over a 15-mile radius from the dot on the map where it initially started, and they're using some stronger herbicides to be able to control it and keep it from spreading. So this is down in the riparian areas, if you can believe it or not. They're spraying these chemicals down in the riparian areas to manage this genetically engineered bent grass. So, you know, Oregon's experience with the sugar beets has been a number of years running. The Roundup Ready sugar beet was fully deregulated, I believe, not fully, partially deregulated about 6 years ago, then re-regulated or blocked, or let's see here, blocked, and then it came back on regulated status, and then in July of 2012 it was fully deregulated, so you basically could just plant the stuff anywhere. The Willamette Valley, we understand it's likely they take the technology, the seeds they produce and breed here in Southern Oregon, they send them up to the Willamette Valley, and they grow them out on large tracts of land. You know, so then you're really, you know, for seed production. So understand that this is producing large amounts of pollen on a much wider scale. The Willamette Valley is very open. It is not closed like the Rogue Valley here in Southern Oregon. And again, I may not have mentioned that that Syngenta has confirmed they grow the sugar beets here for seeds on a 1/4 acre, ½ acre, 1 acre, possibly as much as 4 acre size plot. So it is not like the Willamette Valley where they're growing them on these large tracts of land. And it is likely that they're not growing them on thousands of acres like they may be in Georgia or in Colorado or possibly, say, Texas or someplace like that in the Dakotas.
Wow. Florence, I think you had a question for Chris.
Yes, Chris, I was wondering, do you know anyone in Eastern Oregon that we could speak to about the bent grass, or you know, anyone out there who, any farmers, so that we can work with farmers in the Bend area about this?
Well, the one who the gal who I know that's been handling this issue mostly, her name is Dr. Carol Mallory Smith, and she's the one, this was her project, and so she knows it intimately well. That would probably be the first person that I would check in with, would be her. I do not know personally any farmers that have been impacted by this. I think it's more like an ecological mess more than it is an impact on farmers.
That's great. Would you be able to give me a link to her, or
Yes.
we can do that offline or something?
You betcha. I could pull something together and get that out to you on the report I have on that.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Chris, in closing, what exactly would you like people to know about your movement, about what's going on, and what you need from them, and where they can go, websites, etc.? How can they contact you if they want to help?
They can connect on our website. There you can volunteer. You know, it's like we might need some social media support if people are doing this remotely. You know, if you're in the area, of course, there's lots of volunteer opportunities to help get out the vote here in the next 7 to 8 weeks we have before ballots get dropped in the mail, and donate, of course, from that website, ourfamilyfarmscoalition.org. As well, folks could show, your listeners could show support by going to GMO-Free Jackson County's Facebook page, or to Our Family Farms Coalition Facebook pages, and stay in tune with you know, a little bit more active things happening there on a day-to-day basis with updates. So that's how people, and share that information and work on this in the local communities across the country.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your hard work, and thank you for visiting with us today. We're really happy to see you here and have you as a guest on our Hangout. We just want to help you in any way we can, and we want to spread the word about this really important issue. I don't think that a lot of consumers realize how important the seed issue is and the protection of our existing farmland to keep other crops clean. You know, there is no coexistence. They keep promoting coexistence, but it seems to not be working out. And I'm really happy to see you standing up there in Oregon to protect your farmland and your traditions, and I hope that you'll be able to pull through and get the votes that you need.
You betcha. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Really appreciate And Florence and Jack and Zen, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks.